Assalamu alaikum. All right. 1 second.
And F10.
Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi. Assalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Again, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for attending the R2F show, where we talk about spiritual abuse, Islamic topics, with the goal of, inshallah, helping ourselves and others become closer to Allah and practice correct, authentic Islam, away from deviations, away from cult practices, away from deviant, fraudulent sheikhs and fraudsters. Today, we're going to start off with talking about nasiha. We have the seventh hadith in Imam Nawawi's 40 hadith collection, which we all should take time to read, to look over, to learn the meanings of. It's a very good, simple, short hadith set to start with lots of beneficial knowledge. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The deen, the religion, is nasiha, advice or sincerity." And then Sahabas asked, they said, "To whom? To whom is this sincerity, or to whom is this advice nasiha? Who's this due to?" And Rasulullah said, "To Allah first, to His book, His messenger, and to the leaders of the Muslims and their common folk." And this is in Sahih Muslim. So I want to start off real quickly with a story from the Sirah of Mughira ibn Shu'bah. We often joke around sometimes too much, admittingly, and we're working on that. But I thought it'd be a good way to start off the show with actually a joke or something funny from the time of Rasulullah. So we all pretty much heard about the story of Rasulullah when he went to Taif and they stoned him. They ran him out of there. He was stoned so much that he was bleeding. He was he like lost where he was. And we know the famous incident, the angels came and said, we could destroy them. And Rasulullah said no, because their offspring may become Muslim. But of course, that happened during the time of Rasulullah's life, where he conquered Mecca and he won over the Meccans and pretty much all of Arabia. Mughira was actually from Taif, and he was a Muslim. And so once the people from Taif realized that Prophet Muhammad had won, that he was in charge, they sent a delegation. They sent their leaders to basically seek forgiveness, because they were fearing that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would exact some kind of revenge on them. So they tried to preempt that by asking for forgiveness. To kind of cut to the chase, they went to him and asked, he said, "We'll follow you. We'll be Muslim." They kept asking for concessions. They kept asking for time. They're like, "Let's give us a month to worship our idols. We don't want to pray. We don't want to do this." They kept asking for different concessions, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, kept saying no, no, no. One of the famous things he said was, Islam and idol worship cannot exist at the same time. So the one concession that he did give them is, he said, "Do not let us, we don't want to destroy our idols with our own hands." He said, okay. So he actually sent Mughira, who's actually from Taif, to destroy the idol. And Mughira was he's kind of like a funny Sahaba. He liked playing little pranks on people, jokes and stuff like this. So when they're there about to destroy the idol, and the idol they had there was Lot. You know, you hear about this name a lot when you talk about the idols of pagan Mecca. And he said to the Sahabas, here, you guys want to see something funny? I'm going to do something that's going to make you guys laugh. And they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. So the people of Taif, they believed in their idol so much that they believed that anything was done to them, that the idol was going to like punish whoever did anything to the idol, right? So Mughira knew this, of course, you know, kind of similar to people that follow these cult groups, like sit back and wait, and they think that like these magical leaders that are passed away are going to come back and protect them and save them and provide answers to all these questions they have, which is not going to happen. So Mughira goes up to the idol and he chops it with his axe. And he immediately falls down and like acts like something happened to him. Like he got like the something like the idol struck back and hit him or something. And all the people are like, yeah, see what happens. If you guys touch our idol, it's going to get them. They start saying all these things to the Sahaba. The Mughira stands up and pretty much says, you guys are fools. You need to worship Allah. Nothing happened to me. This idol is nothing but a rock. And he continued to chop the idol down. So that was the joke Mughira played on his own people. And what I want to end this with is that we are all people. And like us, especially for the group that we all came from, we are like Mughira, right? We are from you. We know you. We know what you're going through. We went through the same phases ourselves. Yes, we may joke. Yes, we may laugh too much, and we will work on that. However, we're trying to give you advice, sincere advice, and we ask you to follow it. And we ask you to give your loyalties, as Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, first to Allah, first to his book, then to his messenger, and then to your leaders and your people. Because if you follow your leader and you try to take care of your people, your community, the people that you love so much, but you're neglecting the rights that are due to Allah, you're neglecting the rights that are due to Allah, you're neglecting the rights that are due to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, all of that will be nothing, right? And you have to understand that what we're literally doing is chopping down falsehood. Just like Mughira was sent to chop down falsehood. This is all we're trying to do. So, and the last thing I want to mention is that how you can tell that you are not in a group or in a community that is following Islam to the best of its ability. There's 5 things that Islam was sent here to protect or to preserve. First is our religion. Second is our life or our souls. Third is our honor or our offspring. Fourth is our reasoning, our intellect, our mind. And the fifth is our wealth, our property. Think back of our last interviews that we've been doing for the last several months. And literally, we have went in depth how these cult groups, specifically the one for the majority of our listeners, which are the Muslims of the Americas, Al-Fuqra, TMOA, your leaders in your community have violated every single one of these 5 and continue to violate every single one of these 5 things that Islam was sent here to protect. So if in your quote unquote Muslim village, Muslim community, any one of these things are being violated, then you're not actually in a Muslim community. Your leaders are not actually practicing Islam. So look at that, and we'll leave it on the words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said, take benefit of 5 before 5. Your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before you are preoccupied, before you are busy, and your life before your death. So with that, we have our final installment, I believe, unless we, you never know, with Shaherazad.
I think you need to unmute her too, Jaffer. You have her muted.
Oh, I'm muted?
No, you have her muted.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Wait, I got to do another computer.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
So you can unmute herself.
So we have our let's see. Where'd she go? Can you hear Shaherazad? Let's see. What's going on here? Can you hear us now?
She's still muted, so I don't think she can unmute herself.
What's going on here? I keep clicking on it. It's not doing anything. Hold on one second.
Maybe try making her a co-host.
Yeah, let's try that. Let's see if you can unmute yourself, Shaherazad. Anything yet?
No, she's still muted on my screen.
Can any of you guys unmute her?
Just ask her to unmute. We could try having her leave and come back, maybe, and fix it. I don't know.
Let me try.
Shaherazad, try to sign out and then sign back in. That was weird.
I'll part of the process.
Yeah, she's out. Okay.
Nothing yet?
I do not see her back in
Same
the
message. Muted by host. Let me see. Is there some kind of settings we got going on here that's wrong? Ms. Bahoudin can mute and unmute. Let's see. Let's try this. Move all spotlights.
This is interesting.
Unmute. Any ideas, guys?
No, I mean I can just do what I was gonna do at the end while we're waiting and
Yeah.
just to kill the time. If you want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Shaherazad, try to. I guess you could try to log in, log out, and log in again. Maybe if you try to log in without your account, like just click the link without signing into your Zoom, and then type in your name. Maybe there's some kind of setting. I don't know. Try something. We'll see if it works. All right, Mubarak, fill us in.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, I was I have been thinking over these the last few weeks to maybe 2 or 3 months or so. This whole thing has uh since R2F and leaving TMOA and all these things, I think everybody goes through transitions. But me myself, even after being out, I've gone through a transition or sort in which the bulk of the responsibility for the situation that they're in it's starting to become more clear where that responsibility lies. I won't go into too much detail about that, but I do want to give some ayahs. To give people an opportunity to really think and ponder. And this is from the Quran, in which a dialogue that Allah documents in Quran from the Nabis and the messengers that are sent. And this happens quite a few times in the Quran, that are sent to a people and what they say. So it says in Surah Al-Zukhruf, ayah number, it starts with ayah number 21. And what does Allah say? لا تعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أم أتيناهم كتابا من قبله فهم به مستمسكون, or have we perhaps given them a book before this one to which they hold fast? So think of what we are, all of us, ourselves, whoever's watching and listening, what is it that their beliefs, their aqidah, what are they holding fast to? You're holding on to, and some of these people that are in cults and groups, they are holding on to something. And Allah is saying this thing. Were you given a book or some scripture in which this is what you are holding on to? Okay, is that what you're holding on to? Your belief is firmly upon something sent down divinely by Allah? Is this what you are holding on to? This beliefs. Okay, what does Allah say in ayah number 22? بَلْ قَالُوا إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَىٰ أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. No, indeed, they say, we saw our fathers following this tradition. Think about this carefully. This is what Allah is saying. They said, no, we saw our fathers following this tradition, and we are guided by their footsteps. So does this sound familiar? These beliefs that some people hold on to, their fathers are the ones who brought them into this belief system. They didn't find it on their own. They were born and woke up one day believing on this thing that their fathers and their mothers had guided them to and raised them upon. But they didn't find it on their own based on some evidence or comparing things. They woke up that way. And this is what the dialogue, the people are saying in Quran. Did they get it from a scripture? No, they found their fathers upon this, and from there they feel that they are guided by this. And I'll be finishing in just a minute, inshallah. And so Allah goes on to say, وَكَذَلِكَ مَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ في قرية من نذير إلا قال مترفوها إنا وجدنا آباءنا على أمة وإنا على آثارهم مقتدون. Whenever, and Allah says this, whenever we sent a messenger before you to warn any people, any township, those corrupted by wealth and power to influence the wealthy or the influential or the leaders amongst them, they said, we saw our fathers following this tradition and we are only following their footsteps. Basically, this is what they say. We found our fathers doing this and we're going to follow that way. In that, we are guided. What did the messengers say? They said, even though, and this is what the Nabis are they keep saying, this is the same dialogue. Even though I bring you a truer religion than what you say your fathers are following, and they replied, but we do not believe in the message that you bring. And these are the messengers from Allah. They're bringing the scripture, the Quran and the Sunnah of the messenger. This is what they're bringing, and it's being rejected. For what? For what they found their fathers doing, their parents. They were brought into it by their parents, and they're just sticking to it. And Allah says, for that, فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. We punished them. Think about how those who rejected the truth met their end. So I bring these ayahs to show the example from which Allah brings of people who they found their fathers doing something, believing in something. They themselves did not compare and contrast and were born on another way. And they stuck to it simply because that is what they were born into. And that's what their parents, their fathers were doing. And they stuck to it until they perished. And Allah says, they were punished for that. And anyone who rejects the truth when it comes to them, just because their parents were doing it and they're entrenched in the culture and how they grew up on, and they can't leave it, Allah says he'll punish them, and that's what happens to the people who deny the truth when it comes to them. So let us take these ayahs as an example and try to make sure we don't fall into this category. Inshallah, Allah will protect us and everyone else. Ameen. So I think Shaherazad, are you in the queue now?
Yes, alhamdulillah. It took me 3 tries, but we got through it.
So I'm finished, so we can proceed as scheduled now.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So it's been a couple of weeks. So that we don't waste any time, you just pick up wherever you want to pick up on, and we'll just jump in.
Okay, so let's get into it, inshallah. Okay, well, I think we started off with basically, I think it was Colorado. Okay, yeah, okay. And I'll get into exactly what it was like, just living there. And okay, of course, we know it was an income community. And I believe it was 100% community, but I'm trying to remember. That means, and because I entered as a young person, I didn't actually do the sign or the waiver, like the adults, the couples who came. They signed, because that was found actually in the documents. They kept everything. So all the documents of the people who priorly signed, that was, that was available to the public, pretty much the Muslims around. So basically, okay, I lived there about 10 and a half years. And
so real quick, so just so people that don't have context, when you say 100%, what exactly do you mean when you say 100%? Explain that to the people.
Oh, well, the 100% was that all of your earnings, that you kept nothing, like, for your earnings, whether you worked or, a few brothers did have employment, but the ladies did not work. It was just strictly government, government funds, food stamps and checks. And
so 100% of anything that came in, whether it was food stamps, Social Security, earnings, pensions, everything went to the leaders of the Colorado community?
Well, it was to the leaders, but it was for the jihad. So most of those earnings or, whatever funds were collected was actually collected, I guess, used for exactly what Mubarak Jalani said to use them for, and the rest, and as you get, which is proven, was sent to, the authorities, like, in, we say headquarters, New York,
Right.
and they would send whatever was needed to Mubarak Jalani.
And at this point, you were still married to someone who's actually like kind of running the Colorado community, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Because one of the things that's been said in kind of like a hindsight to cut, because one thing they do is they try to separate Mubarak Jalani from any type of crime or any type of wrongdoing that's ever happened. So a lot of people that come from that Colorado community complain about how bad the conditions were, that they had to give all their money and food stamps to the leaders. And what's been said over the years is that supposedly Mubarak Jalani had no idea that any of this was happening.
That is the furthest from the truth. And I can only go by what I actually eyewitnessed myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go ahead and get into that.
Yep,
and of course, I was very, very young, but occasionally I would live, in different houses, but I spent a lot of time in an administrative household. So how could that be true when in fact, even in the very early year that I arrived, the very year that I arrived there, Mubarak Jalani was there. He came and visited. He lived with in the Colorado, not amongst the people, but in an administrative household on several occasions.
Okay.
So they can't, that's absolutely not true. And maybe they just didn't know, or some people did know, because I've talked to a lot of people throughout the years, and some things they did know, some things they didn't know, some things I didn't know, some,
right,
pretty much how things went in that time.
Yeah.
But you could, I'm just going to go with my basic eyewitness account of what I think I saw, and this is how it went. Yes, the conditions at many times were very, very rigid and very severe. Yes, it was. Sometimes, because they would take you, because I also was on a government assistance myself, and they would take you to get your check. You had to cash it to cash, you had to cash your check in and your food stamps, and they would count all of the money while you sat in the car, and they would go through each book to make sure you didn't take a 5 or a 10 out or anything like that. They made sure you didn't do it. You reprimanded. So they would count it in the car. And we didn't go right.
How did you guys eat if you're giving everything up to Mubarak Jalani?
Okay. I'm going to get into that. What I remember, and I'm trying to keep, my memory, as most accurate as possible. I do remember because how the books were lined up, how they were given, how they was issued monthly. They were issued in 63s, I believe 10s, 5s, and 1, and literally each household. And I remember they said had a 63 book for each household, $63.
Wait, wow. In total?
Mind you, these ladies, including myself, had 5, 6, 7 children.
Wow.
It was actually very, very rigid, and you could not have any type of cash. You had to write a little note or something like that for any, basic needs, your livelihood, however, whether your husband wrote it, and I'm speaking for everyone that, I bear witness to, or, you yourself. And that would depend on what he believed or what the administration believed you deserved.
Hey, it's a whole slave camp going on here.
Yeah. $63.
Yeah. And I remember that. I remember that clearly because I remember how the books were issued, and I remember how many. I remember that each family was handed a book. They would be handed a book. Now, I don't know if some houses were handed more than that, but from my recollection and because I was around, I was there to witness it, $63. Now, if there was a little bit more added here and there, but I remember accurately. Because I got food stamps.
Did you or your family do anything to help make ends meet? I've heard of some extreme stuff, but
okay, now the way it was set up, it was kind of more like the neighborhood and community we lived in had a lot of charity organizations. So a lot of people took care of themselves through charity organizations. Okay, excuse me. I had to stop that. I'm getting messages in as I'm talking. People say, don't forget to say this, don't forget to say that. Okay, I got friends and family coming in with a whole lot of, this is the first time they ever start messaging as I'm actually going, don't forget this, don't forget that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they would occasionally like, okay, they would add the bulk. And I mean, they would be like those 5 pounds of potatoes, 5 pounds of oatmeal, 5 pounds of flour. That would be, they would do like a bulk, or these little canned goods, however. But we did also support ourselves with a lot of charity organizations. And because I was in a lot of teen programs, this helped support like a lot of my children's needs, or, and we all was pretty much involved with this type of,
Yeah.
Charity organizations. But even when it came to now, throughout the years, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I even knew then that people did try to reach out to administration in New York, and they did actually, we would say, smuggle those little letters out, and the administration would read them, and they would take them, flatten them out, put them in that fax, and send them right on back to Colorado. And it'd be the I caught the traitor moments. So they would ask, they would be trying to get assistance on the outside, because they was not allowed to write or basically, contact anybody on the outside without permission. So it was like, and this is how, where my perception comes with this corrupt community, because that's what I witnessed. A family has spoke to me some years later, and she said, yeah, she had heard, that what was going on in Colorado, because she was there. And she said, someone had gave them a tip, like, send it to administration in South Carolina. She said her and her husband wrote this little letter. She put her little part in it. They sent it to South Carolina, and it came. They did the same thing and flattened it on out, sent it right back to the administrator, and I caught some traitors. She said her and her husband was sat down and, reprimanded for sending the letter out. He said he actually read the letter to them.
Yeah.
So wait.
Yes.
That's so wild.
You guys are reaching out to your Muslim community for help.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. But members, families, yes.
Right.
Right.
So okay, so they're cool with you going to government assistance so they could take the money. Then they're sending you to non-Muslim charity, or not sending you, but making you. It's okay for you to go to like non-Muslim charities to get like food or whatever to survive.
Correct.
But then when you reach out to your own Muslim community for help, you're labeled a traitor.
And they would be like, see, and they said I was spoken to, and I was around. You're hearing that, the little, talk around you. They would sit them down and say, and read the letter that they had sent to him, word by word. Did you say this? Did you say this is your handwriting? You wrote this. However, and they said they felt a lot defeated. So they tolerated a lot for an entire decade, because they also, from what my understanding is that they signed, those who did sign these waivers, like pretty much, that they would give their all for the jihad.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I mean, we even went to the laundromat. It would be that even when we went to the laundromat,
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't touch the coins. They would put the coins in the slots for us, just in case we would steal like a quarter or something like that, like steal some money.
Yeah, Allah forbid you go over your $2 a day allowance.
Right. So
how dare you?
Right. So they would it would be basically like that. And, it was pretty rigid, we could talk to each other, so that, but they always want to know who was saying what, pretty much how you see in the community today. But more of the most, I would say, what really stuck out to me just was the first year. And we were living, of course, in Colorado, and what they call Chubby, Brother Atif. He comes and he arrives with his family, and he's living there. And shortly after that, Mubarak Jalani, he comes and stays also. But it was just from that hijrah to seeing him in his condition. So that was kind of a little, just something that was a kind of that first flag. I wouldn't necessarily a flag, but something that was unsettling to me.
And what condition do you mean when you say his condition?
Oh, because I knew him, and we made hijrah with his family, made hijrah with our family. We also lived on the same exact street and block before we made hijrah, and I knew him throughout my entire childhood as healthy and well. He was an electrician. He had probably the only Mercedes Benz on the entire block that we lived on, and things like that. And he was very charitable and very generous. But just to see the condition, his physical, from the bombing.
Oh, wow.
And in his, he was impaired, he didn't hear well, and I wouldn't say his sight was off, but he was an entirely different person. So that was just unsettling. That was at first. what is going on here kind of
Yeah.
moment. And he would stay with us. He would actually stay with us. His family would live with us. And then eventually they would like, he, move, more in the city limits. And he would just come with us on the weekend. And that was the first year until, of course, we had this, I guess, this raid where they came and picked him up, which should have really been the end of everything that was going on in Colorado. But of course, they had to proceed on. And that would be the first time I would actually read the newspaper, because it was on media, basic television. And we could read the newspaper, we couldn't, but they would bring the newspaper in the house. So I would sneak and read it anyway. I've been reading the newspaper since I was like 8. I always read the newspaper. My mother always bought like those Time Life magazines. And so I always read the newspaper Sunday, and we got to the New York Post like every Thursday. And I read that. I always was an avid reader.
So
and that's when I would see. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, were you because I know some families that went through that, and I've heard some crazy stories about what they used to do to try to survive. Like for instance, one family, like they pretty much ate oatmeal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So much so, like, some of the family members, like, they actually can't eat oatmeal now as adults because it's just like a PTSD type of thing.
Yeah, and I know some people who can't eat the noodles, the ramen noodles, because they ate them so much over and over and over. It's so repetitive that you just dislike it. Yeah. And some people ate like peanut butter and jelly. They can't, like, some of my children can't eat peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah,
it's like they ate it too much.
And this same family, instead of buying like regular oats, they would save money by actually buying horse oats.
Yes.
Yeah, they would buy these horse oats and everything. And then when they did purchase things, right, they would purchase these, the most lowest quality products, such as this lotion. I would lotion my children up, get them ready. And I had a lot of little ones, get them ready to get on the bus. And we are a dark-skinned family. We'd be ashy white by the time we got to the bus because the lotion would have so much alcohol in it. It's like, wait a minute, we couldn't even go to the doctor. It's like, we can't even go. We would have to sit on the bus and go to the doctor being embarrassed as heck. My kids were like, we was taking care of it all.
I've heard of people like doing dumpster diving for clothes and food.
That was the thing. We would wait, for the sun to set, and they would have the Goodwill, just have these drop-offs, and we would go there at night. And that's how we would get our clothes and things of this nature, and toys, little extra things for the children and stuff like that. We would just go up there, and and it would be so much so that we would have so much charity that even some of the people in the community, like, just the unbelievers, they would see that we were odd. We would be having trash bags from going to different charity ways. They'd be looking at us. We have babies like in backpacks, tons of strollers. And it was like, now we're supposed to be in COG and supposed to be blending in, but we pretty much stuck out because we were odd.
Yeah.
We were odd. We stuck out.
Just so for anybody that's joining us for this episode, please go back and listen to the other ones, because just to recap of where we're at, Shaherazad started in a thriving Muslim community in New York City. They had their own schools, buses, neighborhoods, stores, businesses, where she was traveling in between like houses of Muslim neighbors and stuff, to now dumpster diving in Colorado. And this is what this so-called blessed community has done for the Dar al-Islam.
Yes, indeed.
Actually, I got a few. I'm trying to hold them.
Go ahead, please.
So, I know that you had mentioned, okay, so this rounding up and collecting all of the government assistance that you guys were receiving, and then rationing out a small portion of it for you to live on. This was for the jihad campaign?
Correct. Which was the understanding that I had, and pretty much the understanding of everyone that was there. That's what they spoke of. So it wasn't something that I misunderstood. That just was general conversation. This was for the sheikh. This was for the jihad. So that I understood that.
I'm guessing there's no way to know whether or not some, or if any, of that money? I mean,
Well,
guess
we
I'm
know
being
where
rude.
it went because as we go on with the story and we get involved with a lot of legalities, while we were in court, they showed us
Oh, okay.
the
Oh, well,
diaphragm. Yeah, they showed us.
okay. I think I jumped the gun. Okay, so I'll let you get to
Okay.
that.
Okay,
But
we'll get there.
so I'll but did anyone, do you know of anyone objecting, like saying, you know what, we shouldn't do that, we shouldn't do this, and what were the repercussions for that?
I do remember some of the meetings, and remember, this is still a community that they have only one source, pretty much. Okay, it's just like almost, and I don't want to use words that are harsh, such as you're talking to the tyrant about his tyrannical rule.
Hmm.
You still needed permission. You needed to seek permission to contact anyone outside, including relatives, anyone in other communities. You did not have permission to contact anyone because it was supposed to, this is an income community. You don't have that kind of permission. You don't have that kind of freedom. And like I said, people did sneak, what do they say, sneak, they kind of pretty much smuggled these letters out and sent them to New York. And like I said, they flattened them right on out, put them in that fax center and write them back to Colorado, and it would be like, caught the traitors, and sit them down and reprimand them. And some people actually was excused and sent out of the income community, and some people was reprimanded anyway.
Good for them.
So another question is that, so the government assistance that the families were getting, or yourself in particular, because we grew up on government assistance, and it would always run out. Now,
when you have lots of
out,
ladies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have lots of ladies, and these ladies have 5, 6, and sometimes 7 children, that's like pretty much a lot of money.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if the government assistance that you were receiving, was it sufficient to provide for the needs that you had for your families, or the people who were receiving the government assistance? Was it enough to provide, comfortably, or at least, what you would need? Was it enough?
Yes, it was more than sufficient, because the way they had the housing set up, the way the housing was set up, we had several houses, but they were all, when we say Section 8 housing, but they were in very nice neighborhoods. So you didn't have rent. And all the bills were reduced, because remember the way it was set up, it was just women and children, and the men was, kind of more, pretty much obsolete in that picture. So it looked one way, but it was another way. It had a different face. So
my last question, and the reason why I'm asking this is because
go ahead, please.
Because this is kind of earlier in, or at least earlier from my vantage point, or from a lot of people who are younger than us, vantage point, that I remember going to retreats in like the late, or early 2000s, and the police would be there. I'm not sure if there was actually like an FBI agent there. I think so, but like police officers and law enforcement was invited, and we were like a community that had a great relationship with the police, at least is what it said. So I just wonder, like, from back then, what was the relationship with law enforcement? Was it a thing where you didn't really, you didn't trust them, you didn't interact with them, you tried to avoid them, type of situation? And did you notice when that change, so to speak? Because I mean, it seems like from the activities that were described by yourself and from other things that we know, nowadays there's like this idea that there's just this great, upstanding, very great relationship with law enforcement and so forth. But I don't know if that seems like it was always the case.
Oh, we had a relationship with law enforcement. We will get into it.
You know what? I'm gonna stop asking questions. I'm jumping the gun, and things are popping in my mind. So I'm gonna stop my questions right there.
Okay. Oh no, we started off late. We may as well continue. Okay. So I guess we went over pretty much how the food and the basic lodging was handled, and of course we had multiple law enforcement issues, and I mean multiple. where do we begin? Okay, first we have the first one, pretty much like I would say like 1985, and that was with, of course, Brother Atif forever. But from there on in between, we would have lots of encounters, and I mean a lot. Okay, because of the lifestyle we were living. Here we go. Okay. It starts off pretty much, and this is like I would say late 80s. We are all kind of gathered together, and on the television, is on the news. And they're showing, I believe there's some type of lockers, unit. The brothers know it's the locker unit. They don't say anything. They know what's going on. At least 3 of them know out of the, I would say maybe 50 people who lived in Colorado, more or less. They know what's going on, but they don't say anything. They go off whispering. And I guess they step pretty much outside. It's about, now they know what's going on. I would say about 45 minutes. It could have been an hour more. It could have been 2. I don't know. It's kind of late now. We're, well, everyone, the families are still pretty up. We have a few families that we gather, and I can't remember why we were gathering. And I go downstairs, and with another lady, we go downstairs. And actually, the way the house was set up was a basement, and you can close the door. We're just down there talking, and we hear a lot of rumbling. This sounds like more than the people be playing up on an upstairs floor. There's tons of rumbling, and then, but we can't hear because it's kind of the acoustics from being on the downstairs floor. And we're just standing at the sink as she's washing her daughter's hair. And we just talking and laughing. It's like, wait a minute, what was that sound? And then we hear someone coming down the steps with no one saying anything. And before we could even open the door, here comes the people. Here comes the police. But I kind of like put my arms out because I'm actually the one standing in front first, because he just looks like a typical person because he's actually plain clothes. He's plain clothes. And as he's coming down, then there's a storm of men, which looks like what we say would be my first experience with SWAT. Of course, we have weapons drawn. They tell us, pretty much go lay face down, procedure. Okay, we're going through that. They're kicking everyone's name. And after this is over, I guess the 3 brothers that were actually in the house were actually, because this is the administrator and his like 2 men that pretty much, or 1 or 2 men that pretty much like, we say henchmen, they pretty much just let the whole, I guess they're sitting in the car, watching everything go down pretty much. And everything's coast is clear. They come back. We really still don't know what's going on. This is only the beginning of everything. We don't know what's really going on. So they come in and actually have everyone write an essay and memos. Who said this? Who said that? When they themselves are the reason why everything's happened. But they're concerned about who's the best soldier or soldierette. Who said this to the police? Who said that to police? Who asked for their life? Who laid down humbly? That was their concern. This terroristical, fake jihad mentality. So that kind of is, we don't know really what's going on. Why would they do this? Still kind of pretty much a secret. So as it's coming out, and as the years are going on, we still have, and I mean, countless raids. And I mean severe ones. And it was always behind. Now, the one that they was that kind of leads into a little bit more of, down the road. The first one was because, I'll get into that in a minute. Well, we had various ones. They would know that things were going on because of the things they were doing for the jihad, and they would let the SWAT team, not just everyday police, they would know things were going on. They know the heat was on. They would kind of like disperse and kind of keep them, but they would let the SWAT trample women and children. This is not once or twice. I would say I have at least have been in about 7 raids collectively. It was so, not, when they come in, they knock you down. It would be years I did not even discuss this with my children. One of my sons, he's about 13. He says, Umi, where were we living? He said, because I remember these men in black came and they stomped all over me. I couldn't tell him and try to explain to him that this was the SWAT team. And this is how we lived. And they would tell us that when they had a warrant, that they would instruct all of us that if there was any warrant to flip them over. Remember, most of the houses were commune, so there was always another family living with another family. We couldn't read them. They said if there's any warrants or anything coming, it's supposed to be jihad, to flip them face down. So that other people, like, if you kind of people are a little curious, kind of want to peek, and put it in a safe place so that, in case that one of the curious, people of the household wouldn't read them. And we lived like this for years into the absolute final, and I mean final ones when pretty much people are pretty familiar with. The final one in Colorado, which was on the Colorado property, where the government actually seized the property from all the illegal activities, all the thefts, all the crime from state to state, it was a combination of this, it was a combination of illegal activities such as, bombings and, and pretty much what we hear about, the basic community. So they gave us about, and I mean swarming different agencies all over the United States, Canada, however, I'm sure many are familiar with the story. And they gave us up, I think he said 72 hours, or could have been 36 hours, he said, and he looked dead at us. Well, one of the brothers came in and he said, because, he said, they said this operation is finished and we have to leave. This has been seized by the government. I go back to one of my room and my entire purse is missing. So I had to go out and, go through the, FBI and stuff like that. And, I need to get this purse back because it has my children's, important papers. And when they handed it to me, and I took another lady with me, and he said, he just looked like a kind of like a half smirk. He said, your operation is finished. You're done. He said, the little guy, because the brother was there, was kind of sure. He said, the little guy tell y'all? And I was like, yes. And they did return my purse, however, which was that raid was absolute nightmare. I think this probably was the worst one. I mean, and it was just all day. I mean, just it was a mess. It was actually quite serious. Wow, it's very, very serious. So I guess now, yeah, go ahead. You can ask a question.
So just so the viewers know, when we say crimes, I mean, all this stuff is like public knowledge now. If people really
right. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of pretty much, knowledge.
Yeah. But give us examples of some of the crimes that they found proof of.
Okay. It pretty much starts with the land itself, which is in Mubarak Jelani's name, because he was staying with us when he actually purchased the land. I remember when they went for the little picnic and they purchased the land. So I kind of remember that in my memory. And okay, it starts with that alone. I remember when we was in the Springs, there was this it was on the news. It's like these massive thefts of, I guess, hardware stores. They were able to prove, that they had, was connected to that. So it'd be massive thefts. Also, was the welfare fraud because they kept a lot of paperwork. Mm-hmm. And they kept even the receipts for the welfare checks inside suitcases. And they kept everything they did. They actually kept the receipts for them. And the money that was received from the people, they even in court, because we went to court. We was when they wanted to involve us, and they wanted, actually the purpose of us going to court was kind of to sway the judge and jury, like, oh, they got all this family, free them or give them less time. But with that, we learned a lot of what was going on in the environment of which we didn't know that much about. So it was a lot of theft, and also there was other connections such as terroristic acts, such as some bombings and some attempted murders. And these things would just come in like a perfect storm, pretty much.
Yeah.
And they would pretty much just watch, and mostly one of the ones that stand out was the actual workman's comp, because that would kind of pretty much start. And I think people are pretty much familiar with that one, Yeah. They were actually literally harming themselves, like telling the other one to put your foot out, turn to the hold on, say Bismillah, while he shoots the other one with a nail gun in the foot.
Listen, I never do.
I mean, it was bad. The stories that just started to come out and surface.
at some point around here, did you know of, or like at that time, did you know that Mubarak Jalani like fled back to Pakistan?
Did I know he was in Pakistan at the time when everything? Yeah, yeah. I was because it was actually an administrative household, so a lot of information came into that household. Either whether someone was talking directly to you, you would, just hear it about, So
Mhm.
I knew that, and I also knew about other Inca communities also, but I
Right.
didn't know them specifically. The only ones that we were in contact, we actually talked was, Brother here from, Washington, Seattle, where he ran his mouth all day, all night. He never shut up and he was loud as hell. So you couldn't not hear what he had to say.
So
And I
all
was
the
familiar
people
with the
now,
one in Texas. But I never met the people from there. But I was familiar with the one, I think that's the original Texas with Barry Adams. I was familiar with that.
so just again, everybody, just you got to really pay attention. These aren't just stories. You got to put things into context that you have this alleged holy leader that's here trying to gather people for jihad. He's a jihad sheikh. He's the Sixth Sultan. He's whatever, whatever. As soon as it got hot, he bounced, went right back to Pakistan to his safety net so nothing could happen to him. While all his followers that were committing assassinations, bombings, welfare fraud, workers' comp fraud, all types of fraud, robbing banks, saying Yahoo, Yahoo, robbing convenience stores and hardware stores and whatever else. And they're going to jail, they're getting arrested, they're blowing their fingers off, they're dying in fires and all these different things while he just runs back to Pakistan. And for all you TMOA members that are still watching, you're still paying his children for this great service he provided all of you guys.
So he ran to Pakistan, never came back, and you're still
Never.
paying for this. But I do want to make sure that people just keep in mind some of the what you had mentioned to open the show, and think of when we think about the Sharia and the reason and Allah, having Islam and Islam being set up in a way to protect these things and to giving you as a human being as a whole these things. I always forget one of them, life. Okay, and think of how many people who because of their involvement with this cult, their lives were either ruined, lost, jailed, endangered, many other things. I mean, you're suffering raids and all types of things, traumatized. So life, their wealth, I mean, clearly their wealth was taken and redistributed in some way that wasn't there to benefit them. Now you could say they signed a waiver or whatever the case may be, but if Islam and the Sharia is set up for these things, look at what's happening, the exact opposite. Life, the wealth, lineage is one, which that's not really part of today's story, but some other things are, and religion, which I mean, clearly there's some issues there as we know. But look at the things that were mentioned, and there's one more I'm forgetting. But of all the things that Islam and the Sharia is designed to protect, this group seems to do the exact opposite.
Mhm.
Family business, people. Family business. I even told you, you're not part of the family. So that just goes to show you once again, like as soon as the going got tough, he was like, later, niggas. All right.
No,
Later.
now I will say, like when everything pretty much bottomed out, I mean, you could not go further. And sad to say, a lot of this was a little bit more avoidable. I would say more the last 3 years when they knew it was very serious, but they just ran, pretty much the community into the ground because they're still collecting and that money is still, even though it was the worst of the worst, it could have shut this down and got the families to safety, like maybe perhaps even nearby lands, however,
Right.
however, but they did it. It's because there's still that money is still being, being still sent to New York and it's still being, and the court documents proved everything. Things that people
Yeah.
were suspicious of, they pointed it out. They was like, this is where this money went, this is where this went, and it was transferred to Pakistan. Now, I will say that Mubarak Jelani did get in contact, but for his own, to serve his own needs, though. Now, everything bottoms out, and for those first couple of months, he actually was in contact with the main household. Okay, if you're not involved, why are you checking on it? Why are you checking on the people who were involved with that, and why are you orchestrating it? You're not involved. When in
Right.
fact, the administration from New York was heavily involved. They took care of most of the affairs. The phone rang nonstop. The faxes rang nonstop. But he was, how come you need to personally yourself take care of this affair when you have administration take care of that for you? And this is a conversation that for me is just kind of like sealed the deal for me. Okay,
Yeah.
in the midst of the storm, I give birth to a little girl, right? And I don't know, she had like a tachycardia, a pediatric tachycardia, where one of the chambers went a little faster, than the other. One of the ladies in the household, I guess, because he was in contact and he wanted to know everything that was going on. Who knew what, who knew who, and pretty much everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, she is asking him for a name. The sister who's talking to him, she's asking him for a name. And I guess the situation where I guess she explains something that was going on with my daughter, unbeknownst to me. So she comes out and she like waves me up. And I was like, oh, what's going on? She said, Sheikh wants to talk to you. Okay, I get on the phone. And this is what he says to me. He gets salams, of course. He asks me, how am I doing? How was the baby doing? And I said, she is well. And he goes on to, I guess, start brewing up his bubbling cauldron of a formula. That wasn't happening. So I kind of like interject and say, oh, she's being treated. So he says, because remember, this is years, like good 10 years, some more, his English is more, audible, you couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And he goes to say, and I said, she's being treated. She's being treated in the hospital, she's doing well. And he asks me, what is she being treated with? What medication she's being treated with? Like he's a cardiologist or something. So I'm going, I'm not down with this anyway. It made me no difference. I didn't even think, that his name and my daughter didn't come, none of that, I didn't have anything to do with that. So then he goes, okay, let them treat her, but go ahead and do whatever. I cannot even remember what he had given me or whatever instruction to give me, because I had tuned it out. I just wasn't having it anyway. Just had a baby. She wasn't well and, stressing with, hospital situation.
Yeah.
And this is what he says to me that just kind of pretty much, and I'm pretty, 21, 22, about 22 years.
Yeah.
Old, a little older now. And this is what he says to me out of the clear blue. Well, I wouldn't say the clear blue because we are dealing with a situation, so I can't use the word clear blue. This is what he says to me. And he uses the administrator's name, but the nickname. And he says, Jim should have taken better. He said it was foolish of how Jim took care of a certain situation, that he should have destroyed certain, I guess, evidence and materials. This is what he said to me. And, kind of like be a little bit, the operation should have been, more secured. And this is what he says to me. So what does that mean to me in the middle of the storm that we are dealing with legally? We have limited amount of men. The men were already a minority, and a lot of them are locked up. So he has to deal with the ladies. So he's talking to the ladies. Yes, he's talking to administration in New York. They're calling, and I'm like, But he goes on to some other things. So I have to go by what he actually said to me. And that sticks. And I'm going, wow, okay. But it wasn't really a big deal at the time because, I was focused on so many other things.
Right.
Okay. The phone is given back to, back to the person who originally was speaking to him. And I'm kind of like, what is going on here? What? But while we are told to go to court and to also take the children. Like I said, this was supposed to be pretty much for show.
Yeah.
This was pretty much like show, trying to pretty much sway the jury and the judge. Look at all these children. Look at the baby. Right. And which didn't work at all because they absolutely was not playing. I think it was Susan Finger, whatever. She was this little woman. She walked with it. She would have boxes and I mean crates every court day. We'd go twice a week or once a month, and she would come in with her shoulders rotated. I mean, she wanted this down. She wanted all of them, put them in the ground, throw away the key, and she would do everything in her power to make sure this happened. The district attorney came in. He came also all the time. I think his name was Walmsley. He came in and he had the same attitude, but she was a little woman on a mission. So much so that we're talking to two of his ladies, and it's another lady. I don't want to mention the ladies' names. And she jokes that it was suggested that one of the ladies or two of the ladies take her out in the restroom because the way and I'm thinking, and she jokes, and she's kind of like laughing it off. It's like, but that's not something that we joke about.
Right.
Because one, if you did do something like that, look at the criminal mindset and even some of the ladies being influenced and thinking these things are funny. One, they're going to get another prosecutor for the case, and you're going to have 2 or 3 ladies sitting up in the prisons.
Yeah.
So that's not even a thing to joke with, but why would she even have said that? You know, and this is the mindset of the people. But then later on, it's like maybe a couple of years later, I hear that Mubarak Joint had put a bounty on her head. And I'm going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's like those dots connect throughout the years. It's like, wait a minute.
Yep.
She was joking that, but did somebody go over that with her? How did she know that? You know, and it's one of the senior ladies, you know. But as, you know, that whole situation and how he stayed in touch the entire time into everything that he wanted and how he wanted to go, because he doesn't want the paper trail back to him. He doesn't want this trail back to him. And it is obvious. So much so, I mean, even down to who would put up, you know, their home for collateral, the whole nine. And I don't want to mention who and all that because it's very close to somebody who's on the panel. So, right. So,
so at this point, like it's all coming, like you're seeing the true nature of everything. So at this point, you're like 22 years old.
Like, and he's checking in. If you're not a part of it, why you're checking in it and why you're orchestrating it.
Yeah, so if anybody with common sense, they can go online and look at all the court document. All that stuff is public knowledge. Like you can foil it, look at it.
Absolutely.
Very clear that he was involved. He knew about everything that was going on. All the lies that people have been telling all the years, like, oh, he had no idea. It's all very clear that he was involved.
And I've had people, I've gone through the years, and I've had people who, you know, didn't know too much. And, you know, sometimes that's why you stay silent, you know, it's always the right time and it always comes. You to be patient, you know, that the day comes. Yep. And I don't even have to defend anything dealing with Colorado. Actually, it's just pretty much taking you through my experience because it's not even really a defense. It's just me telling the story. And I've had people come to me and say, you know what, oh man, you know, I heard, you know, the situation in Colorado, or they would find out we was from Colorado, or my kids, you know, some of my older children. Yeah, I heard this happened, and you know, y'all mess Shaq up. you know, you know, and I was like, oh wow. So I had that, you know, complete negative, you know, experience with, you know, hearing things from, you know, because they don't know, you know, they don't need to know, you know, the time is, it'll come when it comes, you know.
Yep.
And that's that.
How long after this did you like finally get like yourself kind of separated from TMOA?
Okay. So from Colorado, we go into, you know, after that situation, a lot of the families disperse and they disperse now to nearby lands. And this is how I wind up in Michigan for about like 4 or 5 years. And we're going to go into the notorious story of Michigan. We're going to get right on into it. Okay. All right. I get to Michigan. My children already are in school in Colorado before we arrive. My children in school, and I have like, I think 1 or 2 that in a Head Start. And immediately, I didn't want to leave Colorado, but there were actually no Muslims that I know, and I actually wanted to make this move. I didn't want to move at all because at this time I'm kind of pretty much burnt out. I'm still kind of young, 23 maybe. Right. I hadn't even turned 24 yet. Still kind of, you know, and my life is changing. I have a control of my life. And to me, it's going in the direction of which I wanted to go in. So immediately when I arrive in Michigan, the administrator, Brother Sully, he's there, and I talked to my mother about, I think my parents' mother, I think it was my mother, about putting my children in school. She said, well, you had to talk to, administrator, and I go him, and we clash immediately. As soon as he started talking that nonsense about, we need Jamaat-minded children, and Mubarak, Jelani this, and Sheikh, and Abuji, and Shadi stuff, I was like, finished. I knew immediately. It's like the intuition was like, Shaherazad, you know better than this. It's like I hadn't even had experience on the outside of Colorado, and I just knew.
Yeah.
So we were there a couple of years. I'm growing tired of this mess. I have no respect for him, and I actually really don't have a lot of respect for people who do not value education. It tends to be something that kind of, unnerves me for the right reasons. Yep. So a couple of years go into it, and I'm like, I'm registering my children for school, and I don't care. They're gonna have to look out the window and watch my kid board this bus because it came right in the front of the land. And I didn't care. At this point, I was like, I don't care. So I registered my oldest 2 children for school. Okay, Get them ready. They got the backpacks on, and I literally, as I was getting ready to slip my shoes on, boom, boom, boom at the door. Get a loud knock. I was like, oh, that knock does not sound right. It's kind of too early for that kind of knock. So I said, I told my boys, go back. We're back from the door, whatever. And it's like, and it's my, my wali, my mother's husband. And he said, oh, I need to talk to you. So I stepped down, but he says, oh, I want to talk to you in the van. And something is saying, that little gut feeling is like, because I know our people. My head is saying no, but my feet are still walking, because we're so conditioned. Yeah. So when I get into the van, they call him Naib Salih at that time, he's in the front. But I can tell just by his body language, he doesn't turn his head around, he doesn't say anything, and we just start riding. And I was like, okay, we got to have a whole meeting about me, registering my children in school. So we get to the back of the land, and we go into one of the empty trailers. And I'm getting ready to sit down. No one's saying anything. And my wali, he's just standing there. But as we're going down, I don't see, what they call him, Little Sully. I don't see him. He doesn't come down the hallway. But I hear the notorious ching, ching, ching. I said, oh, no. No. I heard all the stories about ladies being locked up, punched up, tied to trees, the whole 9 yards. And I hear more clink. I said, oh, no, come on. Nah, can't be chains. And sure enough, they are chains. And I hear ching, and they're dragging. I was like, oh, my. Now, what are we going? But my mind just pretty much goes blanks. He doesn't say anything. So when he says something to the effect of about Sheikh, we obey his orders and this, that, the other. But I'm pretty much tone deaf at this point because I'm thinking, wait a minute, I just heard chains. I hear chains. So he doesn't say anything. He comes, he pulls all these chains, and he takes the cuffs, and he cuffs my left foot. He cuffs my right foot, and then he brings kind of like he brings the center chain up. Brings the center one up. Shackles. So he brings the center chains up, and he cuffs my right and then my left hand. He takes the remaining, and he's doing this with this attitude. Literally, I heard so many stories about him. I thought he was going to pull a chain and actually flip me over and do me in because I heard a lot of stories. I wasn't really sure at this point. And heard a lot, and I've seen a lot too. I've seen people abuse, but he doesn't. He just takes a chain and he pretty much takes it around the fireplace, and he brings me as close to the fireplace that I can't either go to any of the windows or any of the doors. So, and they just take a bucket, they put it by me, and they walk. They don't say nothing.
And what was the bucket for?
Nothing. Potty. So I can say this story a little bit easier so many years now. And I have a lot of inner strength. So, so I'm like, what is going on? But really, when I'm in the chains, I'm kind of worried, but I'm more worried about, and I'll be honest, I was like, oh my gosh, my kids. Yeah. I know they didn't get on the bus. gosh, they missed the bus. I'm more really still much concerned about my children, but they don't say anything. They just, later on, I think someone brought in the bread and water, and every Friday, I couldn't get unchained. They unchained me every Friday, and I could, Juma Ghusl, and I could have one meal. But they never said how long I'd be in there, however, but I came in on a Monday, and I know I did 5 Fridays. I did 5 Fridays. And the middle, no, I'm not panicking now. I'm not panicking because pretty much inside, I'm trying to use my internal strength. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, sure that this is going to be over with soon enough. It can't be long. I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks or something like that. But I'm still thinking that this is not my life and my future. And I don't know why these thoughts were coming in. It's just maybe, what I'm equipped with, try to focus. But by that 3rd week, despair sets in. And I could feel it from the time I woke up. I couldn't fight it, but I didn't want to cry. I did everything not to cry. I forced myself not to cry. I could feel the tears, and I would keep, try to, back them up because I didn't want to break. Right. So, and as soon as I was like, well, probably afternoon. I laid down. I was like, I could feel the tear. I could feel my chest. I was like, God, I don't want to cry. I was just trying to fight it. And then I hear we had a lot of raccoons in this property. I hear a scratching on the trailer. But I'm trying to tune it out. But then actually, tears do start coming. I can feel the tears coming. And then I hear ting, ting on the window. I turn and look at the window, and I see one of my children. One of the older ones hiked the smaller ones. And that's 3 weeks. They're looking for their mother. They're looking. They said, and they tell me, they said, we was looking for you. We knew you was on the land. They said we couldn't go to the back of the land. So they kept sneaking around. And it's really a sad story. And that is when I saw my I looked, I was like, but I'm waving her down because I don't want anyone to see her. So I thought, get down. So then they hike another one up. And it was the saddest thing because I was more concerned with them seeing the chains, and I didn't want to keep that in their memory. So alhamdulillah, it was actually, I think about 5, I stayed there about 4 weeks. Might have been around 40 days.
It's a long time.
That's a long time. And how I knew it was because it was 5 Fridays, and the 5th Friday, nothing. They always came on a Friday, I could wash. Nobody comes on a Friday. I'm actually nervous. The sun sets, and then I hear click, click, click at the door. And I'm like, okay, it's dark in the trailer. What is going on now? I'm thinking the mob is coming. It's like stage 2, I'm thinking. And the lights go on. I was like, okay, can't be that bad. Or hey, I don't know, this next stage is taking me somewhere else. And okay, and these are actually my mother, my wali, and of course, Brother Sully. And pretty much what he was saying was pretty something I wasn't even really listening to. It was pretty much a blah for me, talking about sheikh and the rules and authority and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, And I get unchained.
Okay.
You chain me and go back to the property. And I just pretty much stay pretty quiet, try to say to myself, well, try to focus and stuff like that. And I would only stay there a year longer in Michigan, and this is how I would land in California. I would go from that property, then I would go to California, which would be the last property I live on. And things actually turn around. I think from the time I'm re-enrolling my sons in school, and the time I was actually able to enroll all of my children in school was probably under 5 years, actually. As the events begin to turn in my favor in my life, Allah is so merciful. So I get to California, and within the short window of me getting to California, proposed, and I actually get married. Little Alma, you don't remember because you was a baby, you was at my wedding. And things start to kind of, I wouldn't say it's getting married, which is a blessing, mercy from Allah. But a lot of things will begin to turn. The tables will start to turn. But it was still, I was unsettled. And the unsettlement was coming from being in the community. But it wasn't it was the people, but it was the doctrine of which I didn't want to live. I didn't believe in Mubarak Jalani. And I was thinking the 3 years that I was there, the 3 years that, I was there, I was trying to take on an attitude. I think a lot of people do, just stay, keep your belief to yourself, kind of be pretty robotic.
Right.
But I also did not show signs. I never used the word Abuji. I never used Abu. I never used any affectionate name. For a matter of fact, I really actually did not speak of him at all. Just, pretty much kind of fitting in a little bit there. Right. But there would be events that took place in California that would and there would be the first one is for the legal situation. And you still see the mindset of the people. Yeah. There was like ex-administration, or they were kind of like administration at the time. One of their daughters was sick, right? This is just the mindset. I'm just trying to deal with the mentality of the people. And she kind of like fainted a little bit. She was actually sick, and it was, I guess, pretty much trying to keep her sickness or whatever, secret, or pretty much private, to use the word private. Instead of handling that situation, I'm just pointing to the mindsets of people. The family, which was an administration family, launched a major Salem witch hunt on the land, making a statement. This is the mentality, and I've seen this so many times, making the statement that, because she faints a little bit in front of her friends, and they just walk her home, making a statement that one of her friends was into witchcraft, and this is why she had, felt this way. So you got the girls pointing to each other. Who's a witch? Who's a witch? You a witch? Whoa, those witch? Who's Umi's a witch? And I've seen this. I've seen this type of behavior before. So that was one of the first major things that irritate. And just gross irresponsibility and spiritual abuse amongst the people. It got so bad that people, if they just had a difference, they were accusing other people of witchcraft. It got so bad that if a co-wife felt ill, she believed that her co-wife had put some type of crafts on her. But this was just the mentality, and it stayed like that. And that would be the little bit of just a mentality when you see in people, and this type of spiritual abuse with elders, or people, seniors, or people in administration. And to come to find out years later, the young lady married in her early 20s. She got sick. The new family she married to took her to the hospital, took care of her, and found out that she had type 1 diabetes. That was it. That was it.
Dr. Jelani.
So it's those little things that, the first thing is like, oh God, this is the mentality of the people. But we had another situation evolving here in California that was just a major turnoff. That I was done. We're in the 21st century now. This is now 2000s. We're in the 2000s, and I'm just about 29, late 20s. We're in the 2000s. And why the hell is Shaherazad, careful. Why is Mubarak Jalani's name in the media? Why is your name? Okay, now we can go with all the lies. We can go with everyone setting you up and forging your names. Even when we went to court in Colorado, that was going on too, where the brothers were trying to act like they had so I have seen this all of, pretty much a long protracted period of time. Okay, we're in the 21st century. Why is your name involved with any type of illegal activities, such as the Daniel Pearl situation? And now I'm uneasy. I'm like done. Mm-hmm. Why is your name? Why have the authorities picked you up? Why are we getting messages, even like that he should have not spent one day? They should have been marching through the street, in parade. I'm done. The people have been marching in the streets for you for 40-something years about now. However, then you start hearing other little things with his name involved. And then the major thing, the actual charter school scam. Okay, let's blame it on the people. Now, I've been around white collar crime. I've been around, all of this so I know when I see it. And it's like, this is not right. Go from nothing to something, of course. Go from, now the conditions of California land property wasn't that bad, but you just don't go from no money to money. It's like, I know better than that. This money's coming fast, and I've been around. So okay, but, I'm not gonna, push it. I'm not gonna, say to myself about it. So then when everything crashes in California, and they release a lot of information, and again, he is attached to this. His name, there's money laundering dealing with him. I'm done at this point.
Yep.
I am done. But I'm still in a woman's position, but I'm done. I'm if you say that, that little saying, I'm sick of it, I was just done. Because we're in the 21st century now. Now, what's going on here? And then they did that famous thing. They was trying to blame it on an administrator. Matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and say his name. And they just said they was trying to blame it on MJ. Said he had orchestrated all this. It was his, whether that was true or not, I knew immediately just by them using his name that they was trying, put him, I would say plot against him, but was going to try to shift it onto him. It was going to be easy to shift it onto him, because, he already came forth, and, admitted a lot of his wrongs, but he had wrongs and some differences with people, and it would be easy to put it on him. So I knew that. And I was like, hey, why are we doing that? His name was in tons of documents, money laundering over and over. The same story again, over and over with the same people. And I was like, okay, that's it.
And it's funny because, again, another thing, if you guys just go and look up the public documents, they have proof that those millions of dollars were sent right over to Pakistan to Mubarak Jalani.
Can't even deny it. It's not like we're making it up. It's public knowledge. He got the money.
And that's when I was, so from there, and then from there, okay, now they're saying everyone has to leave. And it was actually the administration from New York came. They sat with the people. They had this mandatory meeting, and because things was just, and then we had the Ramadan Abdullah situation. There was so many things going on, and it was like, people, this has to. It was the words he used. This community is shut down, and I've already done this before. We already did, and it's something just like a little collapse inside. Kind of silent about it, keep my, my views on it and my take on it to myself. But I'm really done now. So we people prepared to disperse. They gave us a time limit, to get off at this time. A lot of people left their homes. Uncle MJ did kind of it was like it was like everybody was there, everybody went to bed, and people was like, wait a minute, we don't see MJ and the kids and family. They go to knock a few more times, a day go by, he's gone. He's like the first one gone. So people were like, oh, see, we knew MJ. Yep, it was MJ the whole time. He set this whole thing up. When in fact, that's just, I know Uncle MJ, and he's a very private man. And when it's time to go, he's just going to go. He doesn't, he's not going to seek no permission from nobody or even discuss it. And both of his family's houses were empty, and they only took just like a little bit, just enough. So people was like, "Oh, he ran," People who weren't, they didn't really understand what was going on, or weren't familiar with the situation. However, and they tried to dump it on them. But moving on from there, we disperse, and we get to where we're at now. We're in Texas. We land in Texas, and pretty much just from, I can only go by which was going on in my house with, myself, my husband, and children. And he was like, okay, Texas, go into the property here, and, move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But then within that kind of feeling things out, kind of still just new. And within that 90-day, he was like, kind of like, nah, we're not going onto the property. Probably purchase my own property. I mean, at this point in time, we're not doing community properties and this, that, and the other. And however, but it was from there and some of the just events that began to take charge without, this destiny, a lost decree.
Right.
And it was that began to change that paradigm shift. And it was that small thing. And then I was like, wait a minute, being that we here in the my thoughts and who I was, now it's not being influenced by community, though it never really was anyway, because I'm kind of person that I'm hard to influence in the first place. Kind of have my own set, if I don't believe something, I absolutely don't believe it, you have to prove that to me. And if it's, I'm just, that's just part of my personality. And I actually sat and thought about a lot of different things. So that was kind of set up. And then, you know, of course, your husband has his own different, you know, views on things. And from there, I'm like, wait a minute. Then everything starts rushing in. My children's education, the things I had been sacrificing all this time. And we literally didn't have nothing. I mean, I wouldn't use the word nothing because Allah always gives you, you always have. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to seize this opportunity right here, right now. And this is where it begins. I took all this Mitch Mac, you know, school records from this charter and this land and all that. I sorted through all that. We had different type of clothes, Mitch Mac clothes, probably 2 pairs of shoes. I think we had sleeping bags. We were still laying on the floor. And I was like, we ironing, we washing stuff. And of course, my husband had to truck throughout the day. And I said, we're walking up to the school. My kids was like, they, you know, because they're sheltered from the properties. They don't want to walk in public. Their clothes are all odd. They can see outside.
Right.
So, and I was like, nope. So I'm kind of not sure how to, you know, because you're still conditioned a little bit from it. Also had a bad experience. So I was like, you know, so what do we do with the kids as far as school? So my husband, he just looked at me, does it show? He said, put them in school. I said, oh yeah, like the school up the street. So I don't, you know, these things, you know, kind of stain you.
Yeah.
I saw like, you know, the school up the street. He said, oh, what do you mean? Like the school up the street? I said, well, there's only 3 schools here, the high school, junior high, the elementary. He said, oh, well, that's the only school I could be talking about. It was like that moment, subhanAllah, like, hallelujah. We doing this. It was
now.
like, subhanAllah. I was like, wait a minute. Because at this time, I'm remarried, but I'm only remarried for about 3 years now. It's still kind of early in the marriage. You know, I don't really know everything about him. We're still in that stage, you know, and even with community members, and I've had so much, bad experience or, just overall experience, you kind of guard your tongue with even other members. You don't know how they're thinking. You don't know where they, because I've had these experiences and many of us have these experiences. So, and I was like, oh, no, my kids didn't want to do it because they was a little bit nervous. And we did it. So then I was, debating. I didn't put my girls in. I was like, okay, I'm just a little apprehensive about this. And, I want to joke the girls right into this. So I walked the boys up. And I mean, when you're under light, you look a little bit different. And boy, we did look a bit shabby. We looked shabby. We had, but I put every paperwork. They worked with it, and they said, "May I said, I don't know what works, what doesn't work, And they said, "Ma'am, we're here to help you." And they actually worked. And this is redneck country, and this is where it launched off. My kids went to school 45 minutes before school, and they went to school 45 minutes after. They were actually about 2 years behind. Just from not going to formal education. And then I did actually eventually, this is a small town, did put my daughters in school, and the first thing they looked and they said, those rags, they can't go to school with those rags on their head. I said, well, actually these are hijabs, and they was like, well, okay, we do understand hijabs, but and they said it again, they can't go to school with those rags on their heads. And I think they did have their noses pierced. They said in those things, they said that I said, those rings, people see rings, but they want to make more of it because you're a Muslim.
Right.
They said, those guys, I said, that's not a problem to take those out. But so then it was like, this is all new to me. I just, I just hustled through. They said, do you have, I said, well, you have any imam? They said, well, you're going to have to get some proof. So I just looked through, like back then, I think it was a phone book, whatever, went to desktop and actually contacted some mosque, and I presented, in which he actually faxed it to my my landlord. It got back because we didn't have a fax machine at the time. And then it was like, I brought that proof. They said, we need another one. Went to work again, got busy, got another one. And it was from a different mosque. And they looked over it. And they said, well, okay, you guys are welcome. So got my daughters dressed up, got those hijabs on, wrapped them up, sent them to school.
So it's looking back at everything that you've been through. One, you have to be incredibly strong to get through that. Even when you are incredibly strong, it's just you see Allah kind of just holding you and carrying you through this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back,
Absolutely.
how do you compare your life now compared to all the years that you've been through and been involved with the group or the cult of TMOA?
Okay. Well, I would have to go a little bit into my personal journey, okay? Because at this point, it's still not satisfactory, even where my husband stands and where I stand. And I believe that it was imperative for me to go on in it, to understand what I was doing more than just a community member as myself, or say my husband or a friend who was just kind of would say, not say disgruntled, rightfully so, with the community. I needed a deeper understanding. So this would lead
Mhm.
me on my journey to actually talk to Muslims outside of the community. And this is when I went to the mosque and I asked it was actually a Jordanian sister about, Sufism, and could I talk to one of the, someone who was, and she actually sat with me, went and walked me. And I asked him about Sufism. And this is where things would kind of turn. I was doing a lot of reading. It wasn't sitting well with me. I actually throughout the years even talked to two elders, and it was always that same, it's Futiha to the Gaib and the Gaib to the Futiha. But it was always these riddles. My elders, the elders never tell you, and these were like, male elders, like uncles to me. And it was always the mystical, the secrets of the oyster shell in the Lama Khan cave. It's like, okay, the mystic
Yeah,
stories were wearing me out.
yeah.
And it was at this moment where things pretty much just changed for me. And this is what the brothers, the mosque, this is what the imam explained to me. And he said, and he just casually, because I didn't want a biased opinion in it, I wanted something just legit, just without, any reference to a group or anything. And this is what he says to me. He says, oh no, Sufism is not, the way of our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I was like, oh. He said, it's not the way. And he explains to me that it is a mystical practice that, he said, but not even, he said, not just Muslim, but other people had practiced like forms of Sufism, and he said it was like he said it's a mystical way to help you evolve in like a spiritual ring to help you get closer, he said, to Allah. He said, but that is not our way. This is not our way. He said, but this is of many, people who adapted this style. And he also says to me that whoever, I guess, like Murshid, the guide, can pretty much, I'm trying not to misquote him, can pretty much teach it in the manner of which he is, like, because that is that person, Sufi's own, his mystical experience and how he sees things. And that was pretty much the beat. I already was on that, and that was pretty much the beginning. Where I could pretty much, and that was satisfactory to me. And I would go to talk to other people about Sufism because I wanted to know all the components and the mechanisms of how we even got here.
Right.
Was he authorized to do that practice to order, to form a jihad or things? I wanted to understand why these things, and everything I asked, including the jihads and stuff like that, they kindly explained to me that all of that was haram and very wrong.
Yep.
And they didn't know who this man was, and I purposely kept his name. It was just basic. So I began to ask questions, and this would pretty much, which was satisfactory to me. And it was paramount. It was pretty much paramount at this time that I had an understanding for myself, because things are subject to change. Let's say something changed with your spouse. Let's say something changed with my sister or my children. I wanted to be in a position where I could hold my own. And if the need shall arise, that I could defend my position and, move forward. And I also specifically, yes, I stayed in contact with, community members here and, throughout the years, but as it trailed on, it just got lower, the number dropped, the number dropped. But I specifically stayed away from the properties. I did not engage in any activities such as going to Eids or any activities. And all literature that we brought with us, in travels, they were removed from the household. I did not allow my children to read this literature or anything that would indoctrinate them and I made sure that, being that I stayed on this road, that I stayed on this road. I did at no point in time want to ever waver from it. You know, because so many people I've known return 10 years later or 20 years later or 15 years later. And alhamdulillah, I was able to just stay on that. And I had reached a point whether I would be, if I was going to be on an island by myself, then that was satisfactory too. So
Right.
Here we are.
Wow.
Here we are. And as far as comparing where I'm at, is of course you have the peace, I say the sakina that comes along with it. And this was times in the middle, like, was this the right? Am I doing it right? And as soon as that thought would come, is like, keep moving forward, Shaherazad. Stay strong, stay forward, stay concrete. You got this. I got you. And as you know, it's been more than rewarding. But remember also that it wasn't that I came at any point in time because I came as a child. I sat before the, so I can, I gave the bayah and went through it and was one of, when you say those hardcore Jamatis, I never went through that. So it was a little easier for me with that alone. And I am, thankful to Allah for everything He's giving me, and as the people leave and then they're, and you're not engaged with them, Allah sends you a new network of people. So, your network changes. So I wasn't in need of the emotional or, spiritual connections because your network changes for the better.
Someone actually in the chat asked about like what do people do after you leave TMOA, and we mentioned in there like one of the important things is to connect with the actual community of Muslims that are around the world, in your own state, in your own city, in your own town. Like you need to develop that new network, those new connections, and fill in that gap that you have. A lot of people have and I'm not a psychologist or therapist or whatever, but most people when they leave cult groups have a very hard time reacclimating themselves into normal society. There's one individual recently that literally cannot walk into a normal masjid. Like literally said, like I'm not ready to do that yet. And it's like it's sad. Like these are your Muslims.
I've heard that. I've heard people do that. I've heard people. They've spoken to. I've spoken to a lot of people throughout the years. Sometimes in contact, lose contact. Come back. Reunite and go and cannot step into a masjid. Just I just can't do that. And a lot of people don't like to talk about it, and I know, because that's to them a sign of weakness or something like that.
Right.
But many people experience this.
Yep.
And like I said, alhamdulillah, it's told, because I could have been in a situation when I went back onto the lands and I could just been like pretty much faking it, because that was kind of like the plan in my mind, I didn't believe in it, and I was just going to probably just pretty much just roll by through the whole thing. Allah knows how long that would have lasted, because it definitely had, from California, it bottomed out right there. So,
alhamdulillah. We might have to have just like a pop-up question and answer show just so people can get their questions. We don't have enough time tonight, but alhamdulillah for sharing your story. I just want to say before Amr talks, just shukran for jazakallah khair for coming on and sharing your story with us and showing us your strength and being a motivation for all the other people that are working themselves through the same processes that you went through. And may Allah bless you and your family.
I appreciate it, Shukran. And it's a pleasure to be on the show. It's a pleasure to be amongst my R2F brothers. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So after hearing Shaherazad's story and just, the stories that have been told from the guests that came on, and just from what I know about the Jamaat, being a part of it for a good period of my life, more than half my life. And what has become clear to me as the stories have come out and as I've learned more about it is this is kind of like slavery, but kind of different in a way, right? So in slavery, the masters and the overseer, they would come and they own the land and they would buy the slaves and bring them there, right? But they would stay on the land to make sure that the slaves were in check. Yet somehow in this weird cult thing that we got a part of, the slave master owner left all right, and left the whole plantation alone, but had the house niggas in charge, and the house niggas in turn became worse than the slave master. I can't really fathom it, how you, not just as a Muslim, just as a person, can do the things that you do and then be like, okay, well, I am following this person's orders. You are not following this person's orders. And if you are, why are you following these orders? There is a certain point in time where common sense has to override your loyalty, okay? You doing the things that you have done, and this goes for everyone who was involved in all these shenanigans, and thinking that this is somehow benefiting you or your community, is total lunacy to me. I'm probably still like a 50-50 blame thing. Like, I'm blaming 50% of the cult to Bartolani, but 50% is you owe niggas. You owe niggas have a lot to do with what goes on, and continue this like tyranny, because you guys, for some reason, decided to take certain matters into your own hands and like, okay, I'm going to do this. When Shaherazad's telling the story today of her stepfather, is like, he takes her and chains her in some sort of dungeon where she is an adult, she has kids, and they give her a bucket for 5 weeks. That is unacceptable. Like, as a human, like, I am pissed because non-Muslims wouldn't treat us this bad. Like, the prison system in America is terrible. Everyone knows the prison system in America is terrible. They treat you better than they treat people in our community. These are supposed to be, it's not like, okay, well, this is like racist thing. No, everyone in the community besides Matthew Gardner is freaking black. Everyone there is black. So you're treated, it's not just Muslims, your own people, your own African Americans. Like, oh, ya Allah, like, y'all need to find some way to apologize and make amends, at least put an effort for it, because a lot of y'all are just resting on your laurels. Yeah, in the day, things are how they were. You guys have so much to repent for and so much to do to overcome all of your mistakes. And like, you just sitting by like that triggers me, because Mubarak Jelani hasn't been in America while he was alive for so many years, and you guys took the torch and ran with it. You didn't have to. You could have just put the torch in the water and it would have been over with. Y'all are the worst, the absolute worst, because you could have stepped in and stopped it. You just went on for your own volition and said, okay, well, I don't want to stop this because I believe in him, and I will force you to believe in him by doing whatever I need to do. That is absolutely crazy. And I am like, it's not even disappointed. I'm just so surprised how you could be so stupid for so long and keep it going on. So like, the thing I will say is, please, for all the old heads, repent. All right, repent to Allah, repent to the folks you are, the folks that you have wronged in some way, shape, or form, because this is crazy. And the more it comes out, the worse it gets. The worse it gets, because there's a bunch of y'all. So y'all have a lot to do, a whole lot. So yeah. Oh, ya Allah. Okay.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, well, that's it for our show today. I'd like everybody to, I put the link in the chat to our website. It's R2F, R2Fitrah.org. That's R number 2 Fitrah, FITRAH.org. To go check out our stuff. Still in the initial phases. You can also donate charity to and help people that we're helping that are leaving these cult situations. So go ahead and check us out, support us. If anybody wants to come on the show, tell their story, or talk about any topic, go ahead, contact us. We're here. It's emotionally draining. I don't got much else to say besides let's just assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.